It's Harvey's Hot Takes with Bryan Hayes. The Leafs had lost 5 of 6 before laying that beating on the Flames on Monday night. And so you would think maybe Leaf Nation might be placated a little bit. But in fact, there's a massive game coming up Wednesday against a Colorado Avalanche team that laid a licking on the Leafs, a 7-4 win not too long ago. So how important is this game on Wednesday night, Bryan Hayes?
I think it's a massive game for the Maple Leafs. I think they need a signature win on Wednesday night against Colorado, Jay. And in order for them to get there, I think it had to start on Monday against Calgary. And they played really, really well. And that was their most complete game since the Four Nations face-off, where they have really not played well. They've won some games since the Four Nations face-off, but they have not played a complete game in weeks. And they have been outplayed almost every single night. And that's top to bottom. And their coach, Craig Berube, called them out on Monday. Their star players, their leadership group said they had to show urgency on Monday night. They did that. So they checked a lot of boxes that had to happen in order for them to carry it over against Colorado. But they need a signature win. And in my opinion, Colorado would represent that more than any other team in the league. With all due respect to Winnipeg, with all due respect to Washington, the two pace cars in the West and the East, respectively, all year, Colorado's the team to beat in the NHL right now. They look phenomenal. They've really looked great since the Rantanen trade, and certainly since the trade deadline. And you've got Nathan MacKinnon rolling into town, who's chasing a Hart. You've got Cale Makar in here, who's chasing a Norris. And the Leafs' best players are going to have to try to match that. And you referenced that game just over a week ago in Colorado. Somehow, miraculously, at some point in that game, the Leafs had a 4-2 lead, Jay. It was not deserved. And Colorado blew their doors off once it was 4-2. They ended up winning 7-4. And again, the Avs played way better than the Leafs. And the Leafs have got to step up here and be ready to play. And I think it starts with their best players. And again, I think really positive signs from that Flames game on Monday night. And I'd start with Austin Matthews, who looked like vintage Austin Matthews. He had his first multiple goal game in 2 months, which is absurd when you consider how great he's been of a goal scorer his whole career, and especially last year, Jay. And this time last year, he had 30 more goals than he currently does. But if he looks like he did on Monday night on Wednesday, if he gets cooking, that brings so many opportunities for the Leafs. It opens so many doors because everything filters down from him. And I think when it comes to the offense and what can scare an opposition like Colorado or anyone else in the league is the fact that you have Matthews cooking on that first line and Nylander on the second line. And Marner's a great player. Tavares is a great player. They got a lot of depth. They got a lot of good players. But if Austin Matthews is playing the way he's capable of playing, there's still nobody that can score better than him. Nobody. This year, it's a down year for him. That doesn't mean the crown has been ripped away. He still scores at a better rate than anybody else when he's playing at his game. And if he's doing that, and William Nylander on the second line is a guy who's going to score 40-plus for the third straight year, that strikes terror in opposition. So, again, we saw that on Monday against Calgary. It's got to carry over to Colorado on Wednesday night because they're the pace cars in the NHL. The Leafs have not had a signature win against an elite team in a long, long time. And once you get to the playoffs, that's who you're playing. You're playing elite teams, and the Leafs know it. They keep talking a big game. They followed up with it on Monday night against Calgary. Now it really gets ratcheted up on Wednesday when Colorado's in town.
Now, in case you haven't already guessed by the Green Bay Packers helmet behind Bryan, Bryan is a longtime Green Bay Packers fan, and that means he's gone through the entire Aaron Rodgers experience. And so I wonder, Bryan, if you're surprised that here we are, we're well into NFL free agency, and who is the biggest story of NFL free agency? It's Aaron Rodgers and where he's going to play next season, if at all. Does that surprise you at all that Rodgers is still making the headlines?
No, not in the least, and I don't think it should surprise anybody. And you're right, I've been through the Aaron Rodgers experience. I also went through the Brett Favre experience as a Packer fan, and I'm having deja vu at this point, Jay, because Favre, he rolled out of Green Bay in the same fashion, right? Am I going to stay? Am I not going to stay? Do I like the front office? Do I like the coaching staff? Forget it. I'm out of here. I'm going to New York. He goes to the Jets. It blows up, and then he ends up in Minnesota. And I have a feeling that's what Aaron Rodgers is thinking about right now. Do I really want to follow in the footsteps of Brett Favre? Right? Like, Favre is the guy who was so bitter when Rodgers arrived. And sure enough, Rodgers wasn't overly ecstatic when Jordan Love arrived. And maybe we're going to have this chat about Jordan Love going to the Jets and the Vikings in 15 years. But the reality of it is, from my standpoint, if I'm Aaron Rodgers, that's exactly what I'd be doing. I'd follow in the footsteps of Brett Favre. I would go to Minnesota because I think they've got a great coach. They've got a quarterback whisperer. They've got all of the offensive potency you would ever need if you're Aaron Rodgers. They have weapons galore. They have a very good defense. They're very competitive. Look what they did last year, and that was with Sam Darnold. And I think Aaron Rodgers would look at that and say, if Darnold can do it, I can do it even at my age. So I'm sure that's what he's thinking right now. A, he loves the attention. B, he loves that the NFL's waiting on him. But C, I got to believe he's looking over this whole process and going, the Giants aren't going to be the answer. I just can't picture that being the case. Why would he want to play for the Giants? The Steelers are compelling to an extent. They always are competitive. They generally make the playoffs. But Minnesota screams Aaron Rodgers because then he gets back into the NFC North. And for guys like you and I and others in the show business world and loving the content that would come with it, I couldn't ask for anything better because that means he's got to go into Lambeau Field. That means he's got to play Green Bay twice. That means if you're a Bears fan, you're terrified again because the boogeyman's back. He's owned the Bears his whole life, his whole career. Now he's going to roll in possibly with the Vikings. I think it would be the perfect script, the perfect ending, and what he could do. Even though he and Brett Favre have become very friendly. It didn't start good because, again, Favre didn't love that he was there, but eventually they came around. The idea that Rodgers would follow in the Favre footsteps but actually get the Vikings over the top, it would be heartbreaking for Packers fans, but I think Rodgers would love that idea. Favre got them to the NFC Championship game. Maybe Rodgers gets him over the top. I'm sure that's what he's thinking right now. And he's probably trying to find a way to negotiate ways to stay on McAfee and do podcasts and do his own thing and miss mini camps because the Aaron Rodgers experience, it's going to be the Aaron Rodgers experience. It's never going to stop. So I'm not surprised we're still going with this. I wouldn't be shocked if it keeps going another few days, if not a few weeks. But I think he's going to play. And if he does, I think the play is for him to end up in Minnesota.
One more bit of news from our mutual friend Keegan Matheson of MLB.com. It comes from Blue Jays camp on Monday. Brian, Max Scherzer said this: "My thumb hurts. It hurts to grip the ball. The critical thing I've learned over the year is that your thumb is absolutely critical to your arm health. Unfortunately, this is what I've been dealing with since 2023. So as if Jays camp hasn't had enough bad news, Scherzer signed a one-year, $15.5 million deal last month. In your mind, Brian, how much can they rely on Max Scherzer this season?
If I was offered 15 starts, I'd jump on it right now. I would pounce on it. $1 million per start, Jay. I think the Blue Jays would pounce on it right now because I think you just have to be a realist here when it comes to Max Scherzer. He's not a young guy. He's had a lot of injuries. He just referenced something that's been bothering him since 2023. And I think, if you're a horse in this league, if you're going to pitch every fifth day, you're going to give your team, 32 starts? 33 starts. That's not going to happen for Max Scherzer. Even if he wasn't dealing with this thumb injury, I think Blue Jay fans and the Blue Jays brass are bracing for the idea that Scherzer's not going to give you a complete season. But considering it's already flaring up, we're not even that close to opening day yet, although it is going to be here relatively soon. I think you take 15 starts and you run with it. I think anything more than that is probably a bonus right now. And I think if you're a Blue Jay fan, what you're hoping for is that he gives you 7 or 8, maybe 10 starts at the Rogers Center so you can buy tickets and go see him. Because this is the worst thing that could possibly happen, something like this flaring up that's caused him problems. Right? If it was another issue that was flaring up, maybe he would feel better about it, but you can tell his confidence is shaken. You can tell he's concerned about it. I mean, the MRI is not showing any issues, and the Blue Jays keep saying that. No problems in terms of the MRI, but Scherzer is telling them and telling everybody else by extension, I know what's coming here. And I think he's bracing for impact. I think Blue Jay fans have to as well. And if you're the Blue Jays brass now, if you're the front office, if you're John Schneider and company, you got to figure out how you're going to handle this. Because, again, if he gives you 15 starts, and that might be more than he's going to give you this year, that means every second time through the rotation, someone else is on the mound, not named Max Scherzer. Who is that going to be? Who are you stretching out? Do you have enough in the bullpen to go to a bullpen start? Again, every 5th day or every 10th day in Major League Baseball. It's a long season. It's a marathon. And this team's got to get off to a good start. And Scherzer was supposed to represent that. And he did day one of camp. Pitchers and catchers arrived. He looked great. He sounded great. He was bringing leadership. He gave him a couple of spring training starts, and he looked good. And now all of a sudden this is hanging over them. And again, we'll see what happens come opening day. We'll see what happens once they get into the swing of things into April and into May. But you know as well as I do, and every Blue Jay fan knows around the country, Jay, if they don't get off to a hot start, it's going to be some ugly mojo around this team. Considering what happened last year, with the Vladdy uncertainty hanging over them, who's going to score runs? What are they going to do with the bullpen that was a real issue for them last year? There's a lot of pressure on Schneider, on Atkins, on Shapiro, on Rodgers, on the Blue Jays in general. And Max Scherzer and the issues he's dealing with could be a microcosm of things to come. Hopefully not for them, hopefully not for him, but I can't say I'm necessarily surprised. And you asked me off the top, for $15 million, I'd take 15 starts right now if I could guarantee it.
Jays open the season next Thursday. It will be Jose Barrios getting the opening day start. But before that happens, we'll get more hot takes from this guy, Bryan Hayes.
Hot Takes is presented by Harvey's. Customize your burger and get it delivered from our app to your door. Harvey's, it's a beautiful thing.